After being delayed by a year due to the pandemic, Halloween Kills, a long-awaited sequel, is finally here, hitting cinemas and streaming services. Costing in the region of $20 million to make, it has already made a profit, but reviews have been very mixed, which is nothing new to the Halloween franchise. Outside of the original 1978 film, the franchise has never been loved by the critics. The reviews for this new sequel very much lean on the negative side, with critics criticising its screenplay, its lack of innovation and scares. Empire magazine, for example, awarded it 2 stars out of 5, saying Halloween Kills bends conventions to breaking point, making it impossible to root for any of the dumbass characters, and is mostly tired, tedious and an insult to everything John Carpenter got right first time round. But the film has been praised for its creative kills and performances from the cast. The original idea was to shoot Halloween and the sequel back to back, but they decided against it, wanting to figure out what worked and what didn't work with audiences. If they had made a creative mistake, it would have potentially screwed up both films, but also Blumhouse Productions made it clear they would make the sequel if the first one was profitable. The idea was thrown around again, with the 2018 film doing very well financially, making over $250 million at the box office, with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends being shot simultaneously. But the schedule made it very difficult, so again that idea was scrapped, and the third entry has a release date set for late next year. It was announced in August of 2019 that the film would have some returning characters, with Kylie Richards reprising her role as Lindsay Wallace from the original film. Anthony Michael Hall would play Tommy Doyle. Paul Rudd was apparently approached but couldn't commit due to Ghostbusters Afterlife. Paul had played the part of Tommy in The Curse of Michael Myers. I suppose if he did return, it would mess up continuity and only be there as a nod for the fans. Charles Cyphers would return as Sheriff Brackett from the original 1978 film and its sequel. Charles was a familiar face of Carpenter's earlier films. Nancy Stevens, who portrayed Nurse Marion Chambers in the original film and its sequel and Halloween H2O, would also come back. This review will contain some minor spoilers, so if you want to avoid any, come back to the video once you've seen the film. Set on the same night, we find the firefighters attempting to put out the fire at Laurie's house. They are unaware Michael is trapped in the basement, and he escapes and hacks his way through the firemen. He makes his way back into the town and finds some other victims along the way. Deputy Frank Hawkins is found by Cameron after being attacked in the first film and taken to hospital, where he meets up with Laurie, who is there with a stab wound, believing she has finally got rid of Michael Myers. The film flashes back to 1978, with Hawkins recalling the events of Michael killing the teenagers and eventually being caught by the police. He regrets not killing Michael on the night and has been haunted by his mistake ever since. Across town, Tommy Doyle celebrates the 40th anniversary of Michael's arrest and imprisonment, with longtime friends Marion Chambers, Lindsay Wallace and Cameron's father Lonnie. News spreads that Michael has escaped and killed a group of firefighters and is still at large. Tommy forms a mob full of vengeful Haddonfield citizens to hunt down and kill Michael before he can kill anyone else. I was quite excited to see Halloween Kills after enjoying the soft reboot from a few years ago. The film from 2018 I felt was a major improvement over the endless sequels we had been given over the years since the original 1978 classic. This new film made the right decision to ignore those sequels and just act as a follow-up to the original classic, picking up 40 years later. Halloween Kills, like the original Halloween 2 from 1981, takes place on the same night, so it's wise to perhaps watch the previous film to keep yourself up to date, especially with these supporting characters, as it doesn't throw in a recap. As for those going in completely fresh, will be very lost. The trailer for the film did somewhat reveal too much of the plot, but also was a bit crafty, making you think this could follow the same plot as the original sequel, with Laurie in hospital, with Michael working his way through it, hunting her down, but that is not the case. As we see the people of the town come together to get revenge on Michael, there's a shift to more of a focus on these supporting characters. As the series has always focused on Laurie for the most part, this makes an attempt to demonstrate that others have been affected by Michael's actions, and they want revenge, which helps expand the narrative and not have everything revolve around the Strode family. But this becomes an issue for the film, affecting its pacing, having this saggy middle act, and ultimately makes its runtime outstay its welcome. The angry mob gets way too much screen time. They confuse someone else for Michael, they refuse to let the police deal with the situation, and it just goes on for too long. One of the main problems with the film is that it's not scary. There isn't any simple jump scares that worked, which is an issue considering this is a horror film. Of course it lays on the gore nice and thick, with many gruesome death scenes, with quite a few moments of eye gouging which does make you wince. Michael is probably the cruelest he has ever been in the series, appearing to take more enjoyment out of it, showing him inflict more damage on his victims even when they are already dead. So it does offer the violence that comes with the slasher genre, but what it's missing are those moments that leave you creeped out, making you jump or give you a sense of suspense. Now of course this is all subjective. What doesn't scare me might scare you, but I've been laughed at by my friends and family for scaring too easily, and for this film to fail to do that to me means there is something definitely wrong. Again, Halloween Kills is produced by the same team, with David Gordon Green behind the camera, so the photography and production values are to a high standard, with some fantastic shots of Michael Myers, especially when he emerges from the fire and then takes out the fireman. The film deploys quite a few flashbacks to 1978, often feeling a bit shoved into the scenes. As the entire film takes place at night, you can often forget it's suddenly gone back in time. When it jumps back to the past, it really captures the look of the original film and John Carpenter's style of direction, so the movie, despite its relatively low budget, does look very slick. The score by John Carpenter, his son and Daniel Davis does a great job again of bringing back the original themes and jazzing them up for a modern audience. It does nicely make use of the original 1978 score for the flashback sequences, but I didn't recall any new themes for this sequel that made me take notice. There are some added softer musical cues for Laurie and Frank while in hospital, but for the most part it sounded very much like the previous score, which is not a bad thing, but felt a bit copy and paste of what had been already produced, but nonetheless serves the scenes well and creates a great atmosphere to the film. The first movie of this intended trilogy felt like a smart way to reintroduce the character of Michael Myers and bring back Laurie. This sequel falls into familiar territory sadly, resulting in a film that follows the old formula of the sequels we had during the 80s and into the 90s. Having Michael go on a rampage killing more victims, it felt very by the numbers by the end. But then again, that may not bother you. Seeing Michael, aka The Shape, killing his victims in a variety of gruesome ways is perhaps what you want from the franchise and a good way to kill 100 minutes of your time. But for me, I wanted more from the sequel, and not something they have done time and time again. There didn't seem to be much progression in its story apart from the fact of introducing some new characters, or older ones, and seeing them get killed off one by one. What we learn is that Laurie theorises that Michael can't be killed and gets stronger with each person he kills, which seems like the perfect formula for more sequels, but that also boils down to the fact of why should I care in these characters if he is invincible? Bringing back horror franchises and trying to add more to them can be challenging, because the core of them is that they are simple tales with familiar traits, with the victims running away and doing stupid things resulting in them getting killed in a violent way. Halloween Kills is full of idiotic characters failing hilariously in their attempts to hurt Michael, which granted is quite entertaining, but you shouldn't be laughing at the film when it's playing it straight and wants you to take it seriously. Halloween Kills is an unfortunate generic sequel that is entertaining in parts. I wasn't really that disappointed by it, as I'm not a super fan of the franchise. I consider them throwaway entertainment, easy to watch but nothing special. But there is nothing wrong with that. You get what you kind of expect from this franchise, but with the talent involved I was expecting more from it. The sequel is certainly not unwatchable, but it fails to match the previous film. It has a lack of decent scares and follows a similar path to the old Tide sequels. It's a 3 out of 5 movie, great production values, good performances and some nasty kills, but it's a slasher horror that lacks the horror.